Can everybody hear me? Oh, wow, that's loud. Okay, so we're more in the residency realm, so we tackled case 1 and case 3 first. So for case 1, we thought that a coaching situation would be best to tackle the burnout part because it might require a deeper dive to seeing exactly why that person is burnout and also a more individualized fix to the issue. And then for the other two parts, probably mentorship would be appropriate for addressing an upcoming an elective as well as a QI project, unless you have a resident who wants to take on a huge QI project that might allow or be more appropriate for a sponsorship type of situation if it's like on an institutional level or something like that. This did kind of conjure up a conversation amongst us in terms of, I think at least for myself and maybe some others in the room, I think I need to maybe reframe or rethink about the terminology of coaching. I feel like what's proposed out there is more of a, if you're an attending, you would pay some more famous person to be your coach, right? But in this situation, you could very easily see and appoint like a chief resident to be the coach for your PGY1. And we've definitely done this in our program where you tag somebody, you might not call it coaching, but that's what it is, right? So maybe a faculty member that just has gone through a lot of burnout or whatever, and you're like, you know what, I think this faculty member would be great, and I think we should reach out to them and see if they'll have a meeting with this resident to talk about this specific thing. So I've just not necessarily called it coaching. Yeah. And then for case 3, we kind of thought that coaching might be the best because this is a very discrete, big decision that you definitely want this person to arrive at on their own. This is not something that you can tell them the answer. That would be terrible. So that was kind of our answer for that.
You have to speak into the microphone too.
If I have to do it, so does everybody else.
So just an interesting thought about case 3 and whether it's coaching, which I thought was my initial most blunt reaction to it. It's about advice about that ultimate final point in career path, about where you're going to take up a job. But then I thought about if I'm in a position of director or I'm the dean or whatever position you are within this faculty or craft group, this sounds like someone I want to retain. And then I thought about it in a bit more of a, okay, so maybe there's an opportunity for sponsorship and actually showing them, exploring why I don't want to lose them from an academic position, as opposed to losing them to the private sector. So I thought initial coaching, but then as actually sponsorship, and you could offer them some mentoring along the way. So you could go with any of them.
You were thinking
but
coaching.
Ultimately, I wouldn't. This sounds like a really fantastic trainee, and why would I want to lose them?
So you're thinking coaching versus poaching.
Well, they're already, you're already paying them. They're already in your department. It sounds like it's be, ultimately retention seems important.
Any other thoughts on the other tables?
I love this passing of the baton. I love the ulterior motives of using sponsorship to recruit. I'll share an ulterior motive from my side. And maybe this is naive, but I'd like to assume earlier that, of course I asked them in all the formalities, but I'd like to assume earlier that really what they need is coaching, because then I can just be curious, like what you were saying. And then it allows me then to kind of back off as well, because maybe it doesn't spark joy. If they want to talk about burnout, that's on my realm. I love to talk about that. But if you want to talk about like other things that I may not be the right person, I can easily say, oh yeah, let's focus on the burnout part, and then pass you on to somebody else who may be better at other aspects of the question. And then, depending on the relationship, then I can mold that into a mentorship, because then it satisfies both of us. But at least for me earlier on, again, the ulterior motive is to also protect myself from like signing up to so many mentor-mentee relationships, and then I'm actually terrible at catching up with all of those things. So then, not that I am their to-do list, but they are now my to-do list. And so for me, choosing coaching first allows me to just be curious.
Yeah. And I would say maybe it's me, maybe it's the control freak in me, I say it's the ER doctor in me, but when people approach me about burnout, I kind of want to give them the answer, like just shake them and be like, no, you can do this. But you have to, it's really hard to step back and let them just talk and then figure out their own solution. So that's it's a terrible trap, but it's an easy trap to fall into.
Other tables for 1 or 3? Did anybody talk about case 2?
Yeah, so we did case 2, and we sort of did the similar, kind of went through all 3 options, and then ultimately actually concluded that this was a faculty member who had sort of stalled with respect to promotion, was clinically excellent, but needed some support when it came to meeting some of the other academic criteria for promotion. We actually thought this was an opportunity for sponsorship. And so that this is where you pick up the phone, help them get a grand rounds talk somewhere, help connect them with somebody they could collaborate and write with. There might be a little bit of sort of mentorship as part of that, but sort of stopping with mentorship is probably going to be insufficient because it sounds like it's a hard worker, but they just need help in elevating their visibility.
Good.
I think it's interesting to me just to watch the group kind of address these scenarios differently. And I think it's illustrative in that this is a continuum. People don't come into your office for, is it mentorship? Is it sponsorship? Is it coaching? That it's not labeled that way usually unless you're paying a professional coach. And so I think what you're saying is that it's this fluid continuum where you're taking these approaches and you're trying to apply which of the 3 options is best suited for the scenario. And over your career, your ability to sponsor will increase. I mean, it was hard. I could sponsor medical students when I was a chief resident, right? It's hard to sponsor a faculty member when you're a chief resident. So as your career evolves, your level of comfort and fluency with each of these approaches will change. And I think you can kind of see, well, we started with this, but we thought that maybe coaching would be another option. So I think that's, to me, we think of these or read about them in isolation, but the fact of the matter is that we need to be able to reach in the toolkit for any one of these options based on the scenario. So thank you for teaching me that as I'm learning with you.
Other thoughts?
Right, yeah, I would agree. I'll use coaching with my mentees all the time.
So I think that's true to some extent. But if you go through a formal coach training program and you see what the result of that is, it is different from mentorship, and it really is unlocking that person's potential to be able to arrive at conclusions and make decisions and everything. And it really is a much more questioning, open-ended relationship. Every coach is different, and I've used a coach. I think all of you have. And the coach that I used had a different approach than some others that I'm aware of. But it is different in terms of, yes, it is a time-limited thing, but the approach really is different in terms of you not necessarily providing the answers as the coach. You're really trying to have that person, work through their issues and come to that conclusion, even though you may know the right answer for them because you're experienced when, 2 weeks ago, but you're going to let them kind of come through it, and you're going to ask questions, and it's a much more, iterative process, I think, than mentorship, where usually with mentorship there's a clear, that you're tend to be as a mentor, much farther along in your career, although there's peer mentoring, but and you're able to say, well, why don't you try this and this and this and this? Whereas a coach is probably not going to give you that. They're probably going to say, well, think more about this and consider some options, and then we'll talk about it next time. And so it is a little different. I don't know if Annie or Sue have had that experience.
I guess what I would say is I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I agree with Brian. You may use some of the techniques of coaching in mentorship for your mentee at different times, but it isn't the same. And remember, a mentor is a guide, it's an advisor, it's somebody who's been there and done that, and they have an expertise in some area. And that doesn't mean it's in science or in writing. It can be in a number of areas, right? A coach, you can coach somebody and not have any expertise in the area where they are, right? And so I look at it that way. And so you may use some techniques of coaching as a mentor, but I think a full coaching experience is different, and you are being a coach is different than being a mentor. And I think those definitions are different for that reason.
Yeah, and so just to reiterate, I think one of the real benefits of having a coach who doesn't know, for instance, emergency medicine, is that they'll come at, often they're healthcare coaches, but they'll come with a suggestion that's from another realm or another situation, and you'll go, wow, I never thought of it that way, because they are not specific to your field or your particular situation.
My coach works on Wall Street. She's in the financial world. She's not in medicine at all, has no idea.
I want to be respectful of everybody's time and the fact that we're in New Orleans, and I also don't want to co-opt the end of the session, but I am the only non-member of the planning group right here, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you very much, each of you, for all of the hard work planning the day's sessions and for the invitation, even if it was 2 days ago.
You told him?
Yeah, it was outstanding. Thank you for that. But it's fun to be back and to see, I really was having this deja vu moment of thinking about, 20 years ago when I was sitting kind of in that space with Kate up here and kind of thinking like, could I ever do that? Like, she seems remarkable, and, maybe someday I could be like her. And so anyway, thanks for your attention, and thanks for the great session. And thanks for all of your leadership in emergency medicine during what was a really, really tough few years. So anyway, I don't want to take the last remarks,
we will close now, and just thank you all. It's been a really participatory group, and we're just so pleased that you could come together, and hopefully you met some people you didn't know before, and we will enjoy the rest of the meeting. Please fill out an evaluation for us so we can continue to improve the session. And we'll look for next year. We hope we'll have a new lineup of things for you to come back to. And thank you very much, Sue. Always a pleasure to do this with you. And Neha, thank you for pulling it all together and organizing. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you.